This for me is like a kid in a candy store. I mean, this is what I wanted to do when I was a kid, which was play baseball. And today we've got Craig Wallenbrock.
Yes.
I know
Pronounce that name right. Yeah.
Good. And listen, I can't tell you what a pleasure it is to have you here. And I know you looked me up, you found me on the website, and to talk about baseball and golf for me, I mean, this is like a kid in a candy store, to tell you the truth. So I'm thank you for being here. And why are you here?
Well, I'm here because I've looked at your videos.
Okay.
A friend of mine's here, George Hoxie. We went to high school together, played high school baseball. We've stayed in touch, and he knows that I got involved in baseball and started asking me about the baseball swing. And I said, George, the baseball swing that I teach is completely different from what we learned in high school. And I started explaining to him about the grip and bat path. And I know you said you don't like the term lag, but to me, lag is very important. But I think you understand what you mean by lag and why you don't like it.
Yeah.
But I started with the grip, and we were all taught you wanted to grip the bat kind of tight, and the top part of your fingers and your thumb were over, and that helped you throw the barrel out at the ball. Mm-hmm. And as I looked at what were the top hitters in baseball and started studying their video, I didn't see them throwing the barrel. I saw them pulling through and the barrel releasing itself. They stored the momentum.
Right.
And it was like they couldn't prevent the bat from going.
Wow.
It took over for them.
Okay.
And I started using the expression, if you use the bat right, you'll find out it's smarter than you are, and it knows what to do. If you try to make the barrel come to the ball, the bat doesn't have a hinge in it. It's not made of elastic.
Right.
It follows the hands and the wrist. Therefore, we have to start with these things. And
well, yeah, see, we're going to have fun here, because where you're going, especially when you start talking about momentum, and in my world, that whole momentum thing drives everything.
right.
You want to use it to your maximum. And where a lot of guys have gone with golf and a lot of things they've done, and what they actually did to me initially was rob myself of my ability to utilize momentum. And they actually made me fight it. And as I fought momentum, I mean, I got pretty good at it, but I never was really as good as I was when I started. And so for me, like I say, and of course they always told me, like we talked earlier, I was a pretty good baseball player, and I'd go from baseball practice and I'd go to this little 9-hole golf course and I'd walk to the first tee and I'd tee it up and boom, hit it down the fairway. And then I'd go from golf and I'd go to the batting cage, or I'd go to batting practice, boom. And I didn't see any problems. And finally somebody said, you know, you better pick one or the other, because they don't mix. And I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, I go right from this one to that one and I'm not having any trouble. I don't understand why they don't mix. Well, when I finally, for whatever reason, ended up in golf, and they said, well, you got to quit baseball, and here's why, because here's what it is, and here's why you can't do that anymore. And I bought the Kool-Aid. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting now, which it's going to be interesting to find out from you, with some of the stuff you just started with right there, when you start talking about the bat's smarter than you are, that freaking club and momentum, if you get it in the right direction, it's going to take over for you.
Right.
You don't have to, it does most of the work for you. It doesn't take a lot of strength. Mm-hmm. Now, if you get it out of its arc and you start fighting momentum, then it takes a tremendous amount of timing, strength, and compensations to make it work.
Right.
Which, in our game too, the ball's not moving. I mean, so it should be easier for us to get the momentum head. I mean, you're dealing with balls that are coming on different angles at different speeds, and you don't know if you're going to get killed or not. So that's, in my world, that's a harder world to work in than what we're in.
Right.
So, other than, do you play golf?
No, I don't.
Some of your compadres though do.
Basically, my father was a golf nut.
Okay.
Played all the time. Won San Gabriel Country Club down in Los Angeles.
I know it.
He won the Cravens one year. And he was an avid golfer. But I kept hearing, if you play golf, it's going to screw up baseball. So I stayed away from golf.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, when I got back into where I could play golf, I found another sport that I enjoyed more, and that was surfing.
Oh, wow.
So I instead of going to the golf course, I started surfing until I quit doing that, and then I just never took up golf. I started getting into baseball, coaching it, but I kept seeing and hearing both my brothers play golf. My mom, who's still alive, plays golf. Doesn't play golf anymore. She played her last game at age 89.
All right.
Okay. But from all of that experience and just talking how the hands work, that's where I have become very interested in what golf and what you had said about golf and the grip.
Well, we're going to for sure talk about that, because I want to hear where you're coming from, and then I can show you what I've learned. And a lot of what I've learned, I mean, obviously I've been involved with golf for my whole life. I would say in the last 35 years of my quest to kind of figure out what happened to me, or why the game got as complicated, most of my knowledge about a golf swing has come from people outside of golf.
Right.
Physiologists, neurologists, learning people, vision specialists, because those people didn't have any preconceived notion about what a golf swing was or wasn't, but they knew some part of the body or the learning process. So when I would talk to them about a swing, they're looking at it from their expertise relative to how the brain works, how the eyes work, how the joints work. And all of a sudden I started seeing some things showing up that were pretty eye-opening to me. And it was revolutionary relative to me finally understanding why baseball or why golf was easy for me when I started, fairly easy. I got pretty good pretty fast, and why it got really difficult. And I think from what you just started with there, we start talking about a few things. I think you might misspell for a lot of golfers why they're losing a lot of control of the golf club because of what they're trying to do. Because you already explained one thing there, that most people have not really a concept or an idea when you talk momentum and how to use it.
Right. Well, basically what I start with in the grip is I tell them that these fingers are not necessary. What's necessary is the bottom two fingers, and that goes on both hands.
Okay.
And guys who grip like this and put the thumb over were taught that the wrist action was chop wood. You gotta chop down on the ball.
Yeah.
And once again, I didn't see that. I just studied video and I didn't see it. And for years I tried to chop down. I hit a lot of nice ground balls. I hooked a lot of balls.
Yeah.
If I could have played in a round ballpark,
You'd have been great.
I'd be in the Hall of Fame. Unfortunately, I had to hit it that way, and I couldn't do it because my swing was always that way.
Okay.
So just playing around, I started breaking my wrist this way. And as I broke my wrist this way, it allowed me to pull. And you can't pull with if you had a rope, you can't pull with these two fingers. If you pull with these, you're going to bring the head out and around and then have to try to bring it back to the ball.
Right.
So I learned and I teach pull with those two fingers.
Which lines your wrist up with your yeah.
And as I come in, instead of me being here, literally my hand is under my wrist. And so when I come through and hit, I can stay on line and I keep going all the way through the ball. This hand becomes the rudder for me. It's the guide hand. And that guide hand, it's the same thing. It's these two fingers.
Right.
And so many guys were, turn your wrist like this. And sure enough, if you do that, you're pulling off. And so I kind of learned almost to have the wrist here. So again, I could get that pulling action.
Yep.
And that pulling action is what I teach in the grip in the hands. And when I saw your video, I think it's fairly similar.
No. Yeah, but the pull thing, we can talk about that because that in golf, there's some things where pull is an interesting word. In our industry, pull was, people would get up here and say you pull down. Well, people because the ball was like that, they would pull forward. They didn't pull this way, so they didn't pull here. So when they pulled forward with this arm, then they would get out ahead of it and they couldn't catch the face up. So pull is a very interesting term because as your body changes directions, it causes an elongation of all these muscles, which is a lot of what's causing the pull,
Right.
for lack of a better term. So if this pulls and this doesn't make it go, and this goes first, I mean, now we're in trouble too.
Right.
But this hand, what you said about this hand, I mean, that's what I knew when I started. I mean, I started with this grip, like that, and I held it like this. And I took it back, and I went here, and I went just like that, and that's how I hit the ball, the golf ball. Now, this hand was a little different. I mean, obviously started, we can talk about this in a minute. I started, because baseball, I was under here like this, and I went here. When I came to golf, because the club face was what it is, this hand came up, but then this hand started working this way.
Yeah.
I never wanted anything that went that way, anything that did this. I was always feeling this. So this was this, and this was doing that, which is kind of the same thing you're doing here.
Right.
It was a stabilizer.
Yeah.
And my hand changed a little because I had a face I had to deal with instead of a round bat.
Right.
But the action of my arm that you explained, how this is working and how that's working, is almost exactly the same thing. This hand's in a little bit different position because of where the club face is and what you're having to do with the face.
Yeah.
So, but the arm, what you just showed me with your right arm and your left and how they were, that was almost exact frickin' duplicate.
Right.
I can't tell you again how much I appreciate this, because I have always been fascinated with baseball, and I was also fascinated with golf. And when I started, like I said, they were duplicates.
Right.
And baseball was harder because the ball was moving. You know, I never could figure out how hitting a stationary ball was harder than hitting a ball that I didn't know where it was going to be and how speed it was going to come. And now I've got to watch it, react to it, and get the bat in the right arc and time where that ball is. And golf, the ball's sitting there still. Even when I got into college, I still didn't understand what was hard about it.
Right.
Because it was like playing t-ball. And of course then, they made me aware of where the changes were, where I was off base. Right. You're really good, but that's not going to hold. Here's what golf really is. When we get, I'm going to show you what they showed me.
Right.
And I'm going to show you what you just showed me, how what you're reinforcing to me is helping me even more understand and feel better about what I'm doing.
Right.
Because it works with a baseball bat. It should. Yeah. And it should work with a tennis racket, and it should work with a golf club, and it should work anything where you're hitting a ball. There's certain things that are duplicates.
Exactly. Before we do that, let me just go back to a little something on the hands.
Yeah.
Because what I found when you said pull,
yeah,
I want the pulling action to almost be from behind the hips, because I am dealing with rates of change of speed.
Right.
In other words, I have to hit backwards and forwards.
Right.
I have to hit a guy's best fastball and still get out in front and hit the splitty or the changeup.
Right.
And sometimes there's 20 miles an hour difference in that speed. So I try to hit along the path, and I'll pick up the fastball deeper and continue out. In order to do that, I have to have freedom with this elbow. And so to start my baseball swing, my gather, as I start my swing, as I get that foot down, is the elbow starts to lead back, and that's where I make my cocking action with the wrist.
Yeah, your load with the wrist.
So I'm holding that energy even though I've started my swing. Therefore, I have to have space. I don't want to come in here. I'm going to hook everything.
Okay.
I want to keep out and keep room for me to continue to go out through.
Well, see, space in our industry, what you just said there, and basically, now here's my terms for that. Lag, I don't mind if it's created the correct way with your hands in the right position.
Yeah.
Now, if you create lag with your hands out of position, you can't catch the bat or the club up.
No.
If you have your hands in the right position, you can't lag it too much, and what's going to lag it is the inertia or the weight force in the bat or the club. And if you learn how to load it correctly, then when you move, how you move, you unload the momentum and the bat takes over for you. So in my golf swing, the club takes over. I know what it feels like, how to direct the momentum correctly, and then the lag part just happens automatically. You have to have lag.
Right.
You can't play any sport without lag. You can't throw a baseball without lag. You can't do anything without lag. It's how is it created and on what angles is it created on? That's where we get into trouble. And what they showed me about golf with a club face and lag actually ruined me because I couldn't catch the face up. And so, but what you just said there about how the change of direct, how this does and what this does back in here and where the bat is and how that loads this,
Yeah.
that's exactly the same thing a golf club's
Yeah.
doing.
I talk about creating a 90-degree angle as you come in.
Yeah.
And that 90-degree, it's going to change with the location of the pitch. You're going to get a little greater than that. You're going to get a little shorter. But if your goal is always to get into that 90 with the independent hands, you can make that adjustment.
Okay, there's another thing you just said. Oh my gosh, this is crazy good. Okay, 90-degree angles. These guys who do this,
Yeah.
they're dead. I mean, because
No chance.
No chance. And when they start trying to, when they think lag is this, and when this collapses in and this narrows, no chance. You know, the guys who keep this, the pitchers who keep that, the hitters that keep this 90-degree angles. 90-degree angles, what I've learned from physiology, is the strongest angle a human body can create.
Yeah, it's how they build buildings.
There's a reason for 90
Yeah.
degrees. So, and what you said about arm freedom, your arm's got to be free and your body's got to be out of your way. You got to have space. I mean, you could have just given half my golf lessons right there. That's basically what I tell people.
What do you charge? Maybe